is World Book Week. And tomorrow, on the Thursday, the 4th of March, is World Book Day. And so for Time for a Story, I would like to give you some ideas of what you might like to read. Reading is one of the best pastimes we can do. And as we are still in lockdowns across the United Kingdom, many of us aren't able to go out to have visits from family or friends. So what better thing to do than to pick up a book? So to begin with, I'm going to show you and read a little bit of some books that I am very fond of. Now, one of my favourites is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. And I'm just going to read a few lines from the first chapter, which is called An Unexpected Party. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole filled with the ends of worms and an oozy smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole, with nothing in it to sit down or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. It had a perfectly round door like a porthole painted green, with a shiny yellow brass knob in the exact middle. The door opened onto a tube-shaped hall, like a tunnel. A very comfortable tunnel, without smoke, with panelled walls and floors tiled and carpeted, provided with polished chairs and lots of pegs for hats and coats. The Hobbit was very fond of visitors. And I think this is a great book to visit for World Book Week. The second book that I'm very fond of is one by one of my favourite authors, and it's called Caspar, Prince of Cats, and it's by Michael I'm not very good at saying his name, Michael Morpurgo. And this is from the chapter called Stowaway. Elizabeth, I said, I want you to take him with you to America. You mean it, she cried. You really mean it? I mean it, I told her. Elizabeth turned to her mother and father. I can, can't I? Please, Papa, please, Ma. Say yes, please. Neither objected. On the contrary, they looked delighted. Each of them shook me by the hand. They were still reserved, but I saw a genuine kindness there and a warmth in their eyes that I had not seen before. I crouched down and stroked Caspar in his picnic basket. He looked up at me very intently. He knew what was happening, that we were saying goodbye. Lisbeth led me to the door of the cabin. She clung to me for so long that I thought she'd never let me go. The ship's siren was sounding. I broke away from her and ran up to the deck, brushing away my tears. I've thought a lot about this since, about why I gave Caspar away like that, on the spur of the moment, and about what I did next. I remember standing there on the deck, with everyone waving, with the siren blasting and the band playing, and I knew then I couldn't go back to my old life, to my little attic room at the Savoy. I decided that I should stay with Caspar and Elizabeth, and that I just didn't want to leave the ship, this wonderful ship, this magical floating palace. when the final call went out for any last visitors and porters to leave the ship, I stayed on board. It was that simple. I ran to the rail and began waving with all the other passengers. I was one of them. I was going to America, to Elizabeth's land of the free, where I could be anything I wanted to be. It really wasn't until I saw the Titanic moving away from the dockside and saw the widening gap of sea in between that I realized quite what I had done. What a momentous decision. There was no going back. I was a stowaway on the Titanic. That's a fabulous book to read, because not only was he a stowaway, but Caspar was as well. He was on the boat too, and it is a very, very good read. Now this book is slightly different because it's a poetry book, and it's been written by Roger McGough, who, like me, is a Liverpudlian. And this book is called Sky in the Pie. And I'm going to read one of the poems, which is really quite a funny one. And it's called Sky in the Pie. And this is the main poem of the book. Waiter, there's a sky in my pie. Remove it at once, if you please. You can keep your incredible sunsets. I ordered mincemeat and cheese. I can't stand nightingales singing, or clouds all burnished with gold. The whispering breeze is disturbing the peas and making my chips go all cold. I don't care if the chef is an artist, whose canvas is hanging the Tate. I want 2 veg and puff pastry, not the universe heaped on my plate. Okay, I'll try a spoonful. I suppose I've got nothing to lose. The colours quite tickle the palate, with a blend of delectable hues. The sun has a custardly flavour, and the clouds are as light as air, and the wind a chewier texture, with a hint of cinnamon there. The sky is simply delicious. Why haven't I tried it before? I can chew my way through to eternity and still have room left for more. Having acquired a taste for the cosmos, I'll polish this sunset off soon. I can't wait to tuck into the night sky. Waiter, please bring me the moon. Now this book is a fabulous book, and it is fun, full of very fun poems. So if you can pick up one, try and get this by Roger McGough, and it's called Sky in the Pie. Now this book I'm sure everybody knows, and it's called The Chronicles of Narnia. And this one is The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Chapter 1, Lucy looks into a wardrobe. Once there were 4 children, whose names were Peter, Susan, Edmund and Lucy. And this story is about something that happened to them when they were sent away from London during the war because of the air raids. They were sent to the house of an old professor who lived in the heart of the country, 10 miles from the nearest railway station and 2 miles from the nearest post office. He had no wife, and he lived in a very large house with a housekeeper called Mrs. Macready. And of course, 3 servants. Their names were Ivy, Margaret and Betty. But they do not come into the story very much. He himself was a very old man with shaggy white hair, which grew over most of his face as well as on his head. And they liked him almost at once. But on the first evening, when he came out to meet them at the front door, he was so odd-looking that Lucy, who was the youngest, was a little afraid of him. And Edmund, who was next to youngest, wanted to laugh and had to keep on pretending he was blowing his nose to hide it. As soon as they had said good night to the professor and gone upstairs on the first night, the boys came into the girls' room and they all talked it over. "We've fallen on our feet, and no mistake," said Peter. "This is going to be perfectly splendid. That old chap will let us do anything we like." "Oh, I think he's an old dear," said Susan. "Oh, come off it," said Edmund, who was tired and pretending not to be tired, which always makes him bad-tempered. "Don't go on talking like that." "Like what?" said Susan. "And anyway, it's time you were in bed." Now, this is a very good book to read, and there are many books in the Narnia series, but this one is called The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Now, this one is somewhat different from children's books, and it's called Shacklesons Boat. And it's about the story of the James Caird, which was one of the lifeboats. But it is an extremely interesting book. I'd like to read you a few lines from it. "It was a very difficult landing, and it was achieved in stages. But soon the 3 boats were ashore and safe. Shackleton then observes, 'When I landed the second time, some of the men were reeling about the beach as if they had found an unlimited supply of alcoholic liquor on the desolate shore. They were laughing uproariously, picking up stones and letting handfuls of pebbles trickle through their fingers, like misers gloating over hoarded gold. It was their first return to dry land since leaving South Georgia over 16 months before. Soon 6 of us had the stores ashore. Our strength was nearly exhausted, and we turned gratefully to enjoy the hot drink that the cook had prepared. Seal steak and blubber followed, for 2 seals had chosen to await our arrival. There was no rest for the cook. The blubber stove flared and spluttered fiercely as he cooked. Not one meal, but many meals, which merged into a day-long bout of eating. We drank water and ate seal meat until every man had reached the limit of his capacity. It was the 15th of April, 1916. Now they were castaways on an uninhabited island. No one knew where they were. The whale hunters never called there. They had no radio. That same day, Shackleton surveyed the beach and realized that spring tides and even a northeasterly gale would swamp their camp. A move was essential. This is an extremely good book. So if you really want a very interesting read that was actual, factual, Shacklesons Boat, the story of the James Caird, is a very good read. I'll go once again now to a poetry book, which again is a very good book, and it's by John Betjeman, and it's called In Praise of Churches. And it not only has poetry in, but a lot of facts about some very ancient English churches. but I'm going to read you one of his poems. And his poems are always fun. And it's called From Churchyards. Now when the weather starts to clear, how fresh the primrose clumps appear. Those shining pools of springtime flower in our churchyard and on the tower. We see the sharp spring sunlight thrown on all its sparkling rain-washed stone. The tower so built to take the light of sun by day and moon by night, that centuries of weather there have mellowed it to twice as fair. And when it first rose new and hard above the sports in our churchyard, for churchyards then, though hallowed ground, were not so grim as now they sound, and horns of ale were handed round, for which churchwardens used to pay on each very special day. 'Twas thus the village drunk its beer, with its relations buried near, and that is why we often see inns where the alehouse used to be, close to the church when prayers were said, and masses for the village dead. Our churches are our history shown, in wood and glass, and iron and stone. I hate to see in old churchyards tombstones stacked round like playing cards, along the wall which then encloses a trim new lawn and standard roses. Bed baths and objects such as fill a garden in suburban villa. The bishop comes, the bed bath's blessed. Our churchyard's now a garden of rest. And so it may be, all the same, graveyard's much more honest name. Oh, why do people waste their breath, inventing dainty names for death? On the old tombstones of the past, we do not read, at peace at last, but simply died or plain departed. It's no good being chicken-hearted. We die, that's that. Our flesh decays or disappears in other ways. But since we're Christians, we believe that we new bodies will receive to clothe our souls for us to meet our Maker at his judgment seat. So there we are, John Betjeman in praise of churches. And that, again, is a very, very interesting book to read. Now, this book was one of the favourites of my own children, and it's called Animals of Farthing Wood by Colin, Dann. So I'd like to read you just a few lines from this one. And this is from the first chapter. And the first chapter is called First Signs. It was soon time for the animals and birds to face their first winter in White Deer Park. They had moved in a group from their old homes in Farthing Wood when it was destroyed by man. And the strong links of friendship and the spirit of community forged during their long journey had caused them to build their new homes close to one another. So a certain corner of the White Deer Park Nature Reserve became almost like a new Farthing Wood. And every creature from Farthing Wood found conditions exactly right for his particular requirements. In the centre of this area lay the hollow which from the earliest arrival in the park had formed their meeting place. In the autumn months they met less often, and eventually as the evening grew colder, both Ada and Toad knew it was time for them to go underground for the winter. It was late October when Ada ceased to lie in wait at the edge of the edible frog's pond. A feat of patience that had not brought him its hoped-for reward. "This cool weather makes me so sleepy," he remarked to Toad, who he sometimes saw going for a swim. "Me too," replied Toad. "I've been busy fattening up while food is still available. I must confess that now I really feel ready for a nice long snooze." "Where will you go?" Ada inquired. "Oh, hereabouts. The earth is soft in this bank, and I've noticed quite a few holes remaining that must have been dug in earlier years." Ada mused. "That would suit me. Those frogs would then have the benefit of my presence in spirit throughout the winter." Toad chuckled. "I'm sure they won't be aware of it," he said. "They're digging themselves into the mud on the pond bottom. Once they've settled, they'll be quite oblivious to everything." "I shall too," admitted the snake. "My only interest at the moment is in sleep." "Have you made your farewells?" Toad asked him hesitantly. "Farewells? Stuff and nonsense," Ada rasped. "No one cares to seek me out when I'm around, so they'll hardly miss me when I'm not." Toad felt embarrassed. "Oh, I don't know," he said awkwardly. "I think it's just that most of us feel you prefer to be alone." "Oh, I do prefer to be alone," said Ada, a little too quickly, as if trying to dispel any doubts at all about the matter. "However, Toad, I've no objection to your company." He nodded uncourteously. Now that is a very, very good book. And I know, as I've said, it was one of my children's favourite. So it's The Animals of Farthing Wood by Colin, Dann. There's a very, very good book. Now this one is called The Dragon's Teeth. And it's from the Greek Beasts and Heroes. And it's by Lucy Coates. Now this is a very, very popular school, with some of the ones in my school that can't really learn English yet. They're the EAL children, and they are learning English. They're from different countries, and this is one of their favourite books. It's actually a series of different books, but they really do like the stories in this. And this first chapter is called Stories from Heaven. Long ago, in ancient Greece, gods and goddesses, heroes and heroines lived together with fearful monsters and every kind of fabulous beast that ever flew or walked or swam. But little by little, as people began to build more villages and towns and cities, the gods and monsters disappeared into the secret places of the world and the heavens, so that they could basically have some peace. Before they disappeared, the gods and goddesses gave the gift of storytelling to men and women, so that nobody would ever forget them. They ordered that there should be a great storytelling festival once every 7 years on the slopes of Mount Ida, near Troy. And the tellers of tales should come from all over Greece, from lands near and far, to take part. Every 7 years, a beautiful painted vase filled to the brim with gold magically appeared as first prize. And the winner was honoured for the rest of his life by all the people of Greece. And here's a taste of one of the first stories. Article hobbled on a stick. "We shan't go to Troy at all at this rate," he grumbled, looking at his swollen toe. "I wish I could get this thorn out. I shall have to ask for a healer in the next village." The healer tied the linen bandage off neatly. "It shouldn't give you any more trouble now," she said. "You're a storyteller, aren't you?" "Yes," he said, "I am." "Then you can pay me with a story while you rest your foot." Now the book is full of all different little stories, and they are all very, very interesting. And so this is another book that's easily read. It's easily printed, very easily read, and it's called The Dragon's Teeth. Now to finish off, it's a little tiny book that's just for little ones, and it's called The Lonely Snowman. And I've chosen this one because I believe, and so my weather app says, it's going to snow sometime at the beginning of March. So I'm going to read you The Lonely Snowman. It's very dark and very late. There's snow upon the garden gate. The stars are shining in the sky, and Sam the Snowman starts to cry. A fairy asks, "Why are you sad? It must be something very bad." "The cold," says Sam. "My nose is blue." The fairy knows just what to do. She waves her wand this way and that. Now Sam has a woolly hat, a yellow coat, a sort of blue, bright red boots and mittens too. "I wish I had some friends," said Sam, "made of snow, just like I am." But the fairy's wand drops to the floor. It's out of magic. There's no more. Sam the Snowman says goodbye. Sad and all alone am I. A little robin hears his words and goes to tell the other birds. The robins hop and flap their wings. They're very busy making things. 2 snow boys and 2 snow girls. A snow dog with a tail that curls. The birds make Sam his own snow wife. Then the snow family comes to life. The snow dog barks, the children play. Sam and his family dance all day. Sam the Snowman smiles at last. "Quick," he says, "we must walk fast." They put some presents round the tree. There's one for you and one for me. Each robin gets a bright red sweater. The fairy's gift is even better. For in her parcel you will see a brand new wand, shiny as can be. And I think that is a really lovely story. So there you go. It really is a Christmas story. But hey, if we're going to have snow at Easter, why not the story of the Lonely Snowman? So I do hope you've enjoyed some of those books that I've given you today. It is World Book Week, and I hope whatever book you choose, you really enjoy it.